Hello everybody, my name's Tiffany, I'm the Tipsy Artist, and today we are going live, and I forgot to turn off my lights. Or turn them on, rather. Ah, that's better! Okay, so here we go. Let's get more light. It's like, it looks kind of dark up there. That's better, now you can see the pain. Okay, so we're going live. Now we're live with light. Live with light. And we are doing our welcome home pumpkin and a little mason jar. And I'm going to actually start fresh with y'all today with the tracing too, so that you can see it really well and understand that process as well. So that's very helpful. So let's get started with that. Okay, so I've got some colored pencils nearby. I'm gonna be using those. And then I've got our traceable, so I'll be using that too. And then let me go ahead and show you the traceables that we have. So I have a couple of options for you. Probably what I'll do, I made a blank one too, but I feel like that's sort of wasteful since you can omit the inside pattern if you want to. So I do have one with the chevron print, and then I've got one with the buffalo check too. So this one is actually pretty old. Chevron was really hot and trending several years ago, and our model today is based off of that as inspiration, but I want to be a little bit more current with current trends today, so we're going to go ahead and push in this color for the buffalo plaid today. So that's what we're gonna do today. But you are more than welcome to Chevron is still out there, no worries. We will have this available for you. But either way, I'm gonna go ahead and do the buffalo check today. Also, Chevron is super easy and buffalo plaid, not so much. So it requires more instruction. Okay, so those are our little traceables. And what I've got here is I've got a lovely sheet of graphite paper underneath, and we sell this on our website with the traceable, so it comes all together, makes it very fun and easy for you. So I always do the slick, shiny side down, facing your canvas here, and then place the traceable over the top. And then I've just got simple Scotch tape that tapes this and secures this. And then I think it's helpful too. A lot of y'all just work on coffee tables or, well, hopefully a dining room table. That would actually be a little bit better. Unless you want to, well, you young people, you youngins, you can sit at a coffee table and sit Indian style. Those days are over for me. I have to sit at a kitchen table. That's where probably most people are. But you can sit there, but I would go ahead and just rest this flat. It keeps it more secure, and then just keep one hand on it to secure it the whole time too. But a little bit of tape really kind of helps as well. Hello, I'm doing great. How are you? Okay, so, and you told me to call you Keisha, so now you can let me know if I'm saying that right. We'll start with that. Let me know. So, okay, so I've got this ready to go. Traceable graphite paper underneath. Then I am going to use a colored pencil so that it is a different color and I can see where I've been as I go. So let's see here, what color do I want today? I usually like to use like a turquoise color. All right, and then I'm just gonna start tracing right over the top. So just follow those lines. Beautiful leaves here. And I hope y'all are having a beautiful Saturday out there, or whenever you watch this, have a beautiful day. All right, see, I can see all that beautiful color from the Prisma pencil. Color pencil, any colored pencil usually works just great. I wouldn't make it too sharp. That'll help protect your paper from poking through, but even if you do, it's still a pretty sturdy surface area. You should be fine. But those are just helpful hints. And I'm gonna go ahead and do another little line around all of our lovely mason jar. You can see I am keeping my hand on this just to keep it steady. So the question is, did I see the art project that you sent me? No, I did not. I haven't checked my messages yet. today I will check again. I actually had a private party here yesterday, so we're trying to get back into the swing of things. We had a beautiful birthday party here, small gathering. It's very fun, so we've been kind of busy with that. So I need to check my messages, and I will look for that. I'm excited to see that. Yes, please send me all of your accomplishments. If you're working at home and you're doing art projects, I love to see stuff like that. All right, this is the line art for my buffalo check, and I have a pretty steady hand naturally, but a lot of people don't, and that's okay. I would just use a ruler for any straight lines that you need to do, and that helps. And you can actually just run your pencil right across the edge of your ruler, so it makes it really easy. All right, then lettering here. And by the way, with our kits, we always send out additional traceables that have other words, so that if you don't want something like welcome home, you could do, we have lots of options, really fun, popular options. So things like blessed and love, and I'm trying to remember what all we have. But basically everything that's really trending and popular and uplifting. Everything's always really positive and uplifting. Then of course we have that for you. And then we also have a monogram set with all kinds of, well, letters. I don't know, all kinds of letters, but letters. So for example, if you didn't want any pattern in here and you just wanted maybe the letter A for your last name or something like that, you could do that. So we're all about fun options and personalization. This is a super fun, simple design. Man, I'm almost run out of lead here. So this is going to be pure magic, I promise. Hello, Jenny, welcome. Look at that. Isn't that neat? I love it. Okay, so this is graphite paper. This is our traceable. That's how that works. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and remove that. We're done with that. And by the way, the traceable paper, or the graphite paper rather, that we send you on the mail, it can be reused many times. So let's just do that right there. All right, so that's really encouraging. So you can use it a lot. Every kit we sell always comes with at least 2 sheets, but it is definitely reusable. You get a lot of mileage out of that. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I like to do a Sharpie line with this too. It helps you see it visually. Also, I prefer the fact that it actually bleeds through the paint so that I never lose my tracing and my hard work that I've done. Now there are certainly options if you love a softer line, because it's definitely a stylized thing. I'm a super big fan of the stylized hard edge on a lot of things. I just love it. To me it makes things pop and come forward into the foreground. And I work a lot with iconic images, so I just really appreciate that. However, there are some people that really love a soft edge that looks more like a watercolor. Or if you are using this for watercolor, that's also an option. And they don't like that. They want it to remain soft like this. So what I would encourage you to do there is to go ahead and do all of your background first, paint it in, then just let it set up and dry completely, and then come back in and then do your graphite tracing after that. And then you'll still be able to see everything over the top. So, and then if you ever do have a little whoopsie of, oh, I covered something, you can kind of use that graphite paper to come back in over the top too. becomes a little bit more challenging once you're doing second and third times, just because you can just imagine trying to see through it. However, not impossible, but again, the best stage is ideally just after first background color, and then you'll be fine. So, okay, so now let's go ahead and have fun with the Sharpie line. And again, I'm just a really big fan of this. And this is also just really how I have to work personally, just for timing with a live presentation, because I do have to work quickly, so I need to be able to see everything through the paint. But it will bleed through. So that's another reason why I always tell people to start with pencil first, and then that way there's forgiveness. And then once you know where something is, then you can come back in. All right, let me talk to you about lettering a little bit here. So I just did one. You see tiny little loops in here. You always want to make sure that when you come around the loop, you need to make sure you come around it and not inside of it. That way you never close off the loop, because if you start to make your line inside the loop, you'll close it up and you'll lose your loop. And the question is, when you paint, do you paint background to front or front to back? I keep smudging when I'm painting. So I don't ever do, so that could be a complex question depending on, so basically, here's one thing, because I'm not sure if you're talking about smudging with the pencil. If that's the case, I don't worry too much about smudging because I know that it's going to be covered with paint. But in terms of order of paint, and you can ask me more questions too, and I'll try to address it more in the comments. But in terms of the order of paint, the one big key thing to remember is to always start with your lightest colors first. I never do any of the outline or the fine details first. And I have noticed that when I teach beginners, sometimes they see all these hard lines in class and they just jump ahead, and they'll actually stick their little bit into black paint and start trying to paint black lines at the very beginning of the class, because they're not listening to me, they're just doing their own thing and they're not paying attention to me. And I usually don't say anything because I just don't want to bum them out at the beginning of the class, like, oops, you just really made it super hard on yourself because you didn't listen and you just jumped ahead. However, what I will tell you in this video right now is that will really set you back. You never want to paint hard black lines. It will smudge or blend into every bright color from then going forward, especially if it's not dry, and it will almost just destroy everything that you're trying to do. That's a very strong word, but it's true. So what you want to do is, I always start super light, all my lightest colors to begin with, and then I always wait and come in with my hard blacks and dark colors towards the end. And then that's what I use. So for example, on this one, I would have done all my seafoam first, light gray, that color blocking first. Then I would have come in with turquoise and all the lights, like the golds and the oranges. And then next would be like the red and the golds. Then very, very last would be any pattern work that comes in over the top. Black outline would be the very last thing that I would do. So that would be not interrupting any of those bright, bright colors. So I'm not sure if that answered your question or not. If not, you can ask me in a different way and we'll try to get it figured out, but hopefully that helps. So, all right, so I'm going to continue with this. Now the reason why I do the Sharpie in the beginning is because I know it bleeds through and it is dry immediately, so it never does interrupt any light colors. Now the caution is though, and I don't have an issue with this particular painting, but I do have it a lot. I always tell people to start with pencil first, because if you do have certain images that are in the foreground and then you have something behind it and you do a Sharpie too soon with that, you'll end up getting lines through something. So, so for example, if you were doing a rose, for example, I would actually almost probably do just the outside line and leave all the interior space of that just blank. That way I know it won't bleed through the paint. Or if you have objects like one coming in front, okay, here's a good example right here. So I do have, I was wondering, do I have that? So I've got a pumpkin coming in front of the mason jar, so it's in the foreground. So what I absolutely don't want is the straight line of the mason jar trace coming through the pumpkin, especially with a Sharpie, because I'm going to be battling that forever. And oh my gosh, orange is so hard. Like, it's super transparent, you would really have a hard time. Like if you were doing the orange, for example, you would have a really, really hard time covering up that line coming through with your orange and your gold. It would be very, very, very challenging. Not impossible. What I would suggest there would be to do a gray undercoat to cover and then pop back over the top with your lighter shade to get good coverage. So again, not impossible. There are solutions. You can do the gray primer trick. But easier would be to work it out with pencil first, and then you know, back out, erase the lines you don't want coming out in the foreground, and then come back in over the top with your Sharpie, and like we're doing now. And then so now every line that's showing in front is not an issue. Like, I'm super okay with it showing through. Okay, so now I've got these lines here with my buffalo check. So I'm going to go ahead and do those. And again, you can use your ruler for that. And then let's go ahead and work out the interior space of this. So I'm going to use a pencil on this because I want to lightly reference it so that I know where to place what colors. But I don't want anything bleeding through. I don't want a B and a G and a W showing through for referencing what color. So I'm going to start with black. This is where a black square will go. And then surrounding, every time I place in a black, surrounding that in all four quadrants would always be gray. So then I'll do a G for gray all the way around it. And this is a real easy buffalo check. Love it. So just white, white, and I'm not going to put a W for white. I'm just going to let my white be my white, and then I'm good. I'm done. So, yay! We're all set up now with our trace. This is amazing. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I've got my paint nearby, and our kits always come with paint too, so we have beautiful heavy-bodied acrylic paint. That's what we're using today. And I've got that laid out on my plates, and I just use a little reference here. I just use styrofoam plates. And then my brushes, I have 3 brushes. I've got my mama brush, and then I have my little buddy brush, and then I have my little bit brush. All right, so now, oh, and water. Got to make sure you got a bucket of water nearby or a cup of water to give them a bath. And then either paper towels or like a little rag nearby. Wash rag even works really great too, or hand towel. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and work into the background behind us with that beautiful sea foam color. And I am going to just do an equal mix here of 1 dollop of white, 1 dollop of blue, and 1 dollop of green. All right, so this is just a titanium white, cyan blue, and then cadmium green. Hello, Rolinda. Happy Saturday, happy weekend to you. I hope you have the day off and that you're not on call. All right, so I've got lots of this beautiful turquoise all mixed up to begin with. And I've got seafoam in the back, so I have a lot of white that works into this one. So I'm gonna come in and I'm actually gonna push this to a much lighter seafoam to begin with. All right, and then I'm gonna keep pushing back and forth between my white and that one that I've got, that turquoise that I mixed up. Also, I wanna make sure and show you, yay, you're off work completely, that's amazing. All right, so I also have Viridian, and I'm gonna go ahead and push this down on my plate. So another little trick for you to know with Viridian is you can actually push white into it, and that also makes a really pretty color too. So something, you know, kind of fun. Hi Lisa, welcome. All right, so now we can start this process of the background. And I have all kinds of fun little, there's a wide range of what this creates in terms of, you know, see, if you put more blue, it's more turquoise, more green, it's more of that kind of a teal color. So I kind of like to dip into all those areas as I go and push this back and forth. So I start by making what looks like a cross stroke, looks like the letter X. And then I'll push in a little bit of white and push that back and forth. All right, I have a pretty big area to work into. I did my mixing with Mama. I'm actually going to switch over to, you can also buy this on our website. It doesn't come with the kit, but this is a Big Daddy brush, and I'm gonna really love Big Daddy right now because Big Daddy really covers a lot more area very quickly. And I just really enjoy using a big brush here. So big sweeping strokes back and forth. I hold the brush parallel to the canvas and just push this back and forth. And you'll notice that when I get close to the letter, well, basically everything. Now I am going to be careful to not cut in over the buffalo check. No, I'm not going to do that because I have some white space in there and I don't want to interrupt that at all. But the rest of this, I'm definitely going to make my relaxation component of this process top priority, and I'm just going to focus on just doing a paint through all the way across. And I'm going to lighten this up a lot more. And just lots of little tiny little X's, and you can see how it's already starting to bleed through there. And that's actually a good thing for me because I did all my good prep work in the beginning. I'm happy with those lines that actually do show through. Let me tell you this too, there's another option here that you can do. You can do either a cross stroke like what I'm doing here, or you can do a sweeping horizontal stroke. So let me show you what that horizontal stroke would look like too. So that is a little different, but it's just holding the brush back and forth and just sweeping it back and forth just like that. And that's also a really pretty look in the background. So either way, that works, both those work really well. I'm going to go ahead and switch back over to the cross stroke. It's a little bit more textural and expressive. And then I'm going to push in a little bit more white up here at the top to be a little bit more dramatic and accentuate that texture. And again, just kind of think of it like making little tiny little X's just back and forth. I'm going to turn the fan. It's a little, it heats up. I'm in the sunroom, but it heats up a little bit back here. Especially as it gets later into the day. A little bit hotter. And especially in here, I definitely wanted all of this background to come peeking through behind that little plant that's coming out of the jar. So I definitely want to make sure that I paint all the way through. With my mason jar, I don't have to paint all the way through. I just do a slight overlap because that'll just have a solid color that comes in all over the top. And it's kind of almost like a tone on tone, with this being just a darker turquoise and then this being more of that seafoam. So I definitely want to make sure that I've got a lot more of this white seafoam look coming through so that I have contrast. You don't want it to be too much of like a turquoise on turquoise effect that happens. Hi Kathy. Hi Kay. Okay, cannot find the digital. I think I may not even have it up yet, but I will load it up right after this class and I'll make sure you have it. And speaking of that, oops, I got over the white. If ever you're on my website and you can't find something like a digital or a template or a kit or anything that you want, I should have, and I'll fix it today, but I should have a contact form on every single page that says, if you don't find whatever you're looking for, just shoot me a message about what you want, and then I'll create it that day and list it online. But I'll get that loaded, and then I see your comment, and then I'll be sure wherever your comment was, I'll give you the direct link to that. And so sometimes it's just easier anyway. Like it's possible that I do have something posted, and I just have, well, I have about 600 products. I noticed that the other day. So it could be that you just, rather than you having to look through 600 products to try to find something, you could just send me a message and say, hey, will you find this for me? And I certainly will, and I'll send you a direct link. So it just saves you time and it's just a lot easier. All right, so I'm definitely going to cut in around this cute little pumpkin. And I did that by changing how I held the brush. And thank you so much. And I just hold it more like a pencil, and I do that line all the way around. And then little cross stroke, just back and forth. And add a little bit more texture up here at the top with that white. All right, I'm looking. Am I done? I think so. Okay. All right, so there we go on that. My next step will be to go ahead and do the mason jar. And Mama Brush is definitely super appropriate for this space. She's nice and big, good coverage. This time I want to come in with more of my, like a darker feel of that turquoise, but I definitely want more contrast. I have my Viridian that I put in over the top here earlier, so let's talk about that and show you that. Is that right? Yes, Viridian. Okay, so this is beautiful. And I want just a little bit of that cyan blue with that, and then just a little bit of white, but definitely a lot darker. So then I'll push this into this shape. So I'll get really good contrast over the top. And around the line edge, you can hold the brush more like a pencil to get that line around the edge. All right, and then as I work into the interior space of the mason jar, then I'll go ahead and turn that brush more over to the flat side. Boy, I ran out of that Viridian quick. I'm just pushing a little bit more blue with that. I'm gonna reload a little bit more of this stuff. This is the Viridian, this stuff. She said, wow, way to call it this stuff. What are you talking about? You know, this stuff. All right, so there's the Viridian. A little bit of blue, a little bit of white. Still want to keep it pretty dark. And then just push into this shape here. Letting more of the flat side of the brush face the canvas when you're filling into a larger area. So I turn that handle more over to the side once I'm done with the outline work. And I do a little cross stroke back and forth, just kind of lightly feather it back and forth here. All right, crisscross it out, crisscross, crisscross. Yay! That's what you do when you're done with that part. You go, yay me, I finished it. Rock on. Okay, so now I want to go ahead and fill in my buffalo check pumpkin. This is very exciting. Making progress. Okay, so let's do the gray first. And what I want to do for the gray is I want a dollop of the white. And then let's do a little tiny touch of the black. Let's start small first and see where we're at. So it's just kind of a medium gray. So let's push in a little bit more black. All right, beautiful, beautiful. Y'all can see this okay, right? Making sure. All right, so white and gray, no, white and black makes gray. Medium gray. All right, so here we go. We've got our mama brush, okay? And I'm gonna go ahead and I can use the line edge of the brush, holding it like towards the canvas like this, just like a pencil hold. And then when I fill into the center, then I start to turn the handle more over to the side. And then flat side of the brush over the top. Very pretty. All right, very nice. There's our gray. And you have an option on the white part. You can just let the white of your canvas be your white, or you can come in and add a little bit of just actual titanium white over the surface area to give it a really nice painted finish, because you will see a little bit of texture. It's very subtle, but you'll see a little bit of a difference. So this is just titanium white, and I'm using my little buddy brush just right over the top here. Okay, now all we have to do is black. All right, so I am going to come in with a little brush, little buddy brush, again, but make sure, this is really important, if you have to rinse out with your water, make sure you dry off really well. You want the brush just moist and no excess water in the belly of the brush, so when you do apply pressure onto the canvas, you do not get a water run of any kind. The other way to prevent a water run, if you're still concerned about it, just make sure you lay your canvas on a flat surface, and then that way you won't get a water run coming down the surface area there. So really important on that, especially with the black, because I promise it will look just like a mascara run. So I always have to be careful because I'm usually always working with an angle. All right, and then the line edge, I just hold it like a pencil, use the straight edge there. All right, really nice. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and tap this little stem up here with the black as well, because that actually just fits well with the design in terms of the balance of pattern. So I just make that black as well. Easy, easy. Okay. All right, then up here I have some beautiful fall colors that I'll work in. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch over to my little bit brush here. And let's see. We definitely want some fall color here, so I'm gonna go ahead and do some cadmium red. And then my little bit brush, I'm gonna go ahead and twist into that. So that loads up the brush, but it also twists it into a nice fine point. Gives me really good control there. And I'm gonna go ahead and paint into the surface area. Now I always encourage people just to go ahead and let this set up and dry when you're working at home. Mine might still be a bit tacky, so I have to be very careful about having a very gentle hand over the top so that I don't blend any of this together. But at home, you can be patient, relax, and just let things set up and dry. Or if you are impatient, which I empathize with, you can always hit it with a hair dryer, and that's another way to speed up the process. Not as peaceful though, because of it's a little bit, what's noisy. So I definitely encourage you just to try to be patient with it and relax with the whole process, but hair dryer can work. All right, one other thing you'll notice here too is that in getting into some of these little fine details, you can stabilize your hand by resting the weight of your hand on your pinky on your canvas. So that gives you a more confident hold while you get to work and manipulate these other lines over in different areas. Just fill that in. And then to have a little bit of an accent on here, you can do, I'm going to do a little touch of gold and just kind of push that through. And so this is something else you can think about. So I don't always necessarily want a heavy black line around something. And it certainly is gorgeous just on its own. This is what I was talking about earlier, where you can, some people just prefer a softer line edge around the work, and they don't like the black line. So you can see the black line back here, and you can also see it in this stage without that black line. So it's just kind of up to you on what you like. So a nice little touch of fall here. And again, this is my cadmium red. My brush is really getting full with paint, so I'm going to do a little quick twist back into the paint. And see, that starts to spin it out into a nice fine point. Okay, pretty. We're almost, if not, maybe there, real close to black line work, which, as promised, would be the very last part, because again, you don't want to interrupt any of your brights with the black. It's like a final detail. So I have little dots that I can put in here, put in place. So I'm going to use, okay, so here's Big Daddy brush. See that nice big handle? Nice big circle on the end of that big handle too. All right, so with this, I go ahead and push into, we can do gold or white. I'll show you both. But I'll just go ahead and do a few of these. I usually put them in clusters of 3, and so it's just a really fun, abstracted little flower that's appearing through there. So it's just, and it's so easy, because I just dip right into the paint, press right straight forward. All right, so I'm thinking, good, good, good. All right, now I want to do a little bit of the accent that will happen over the top of the mason jar. All right, so I've got my, let's go back. Okay, so here we go. Here is a little bit white paint. And I'll do just a light sketch of a line here. My Sharpie is bleeding through. You may not be able to see it, but I can certainly see through it. And I see it there. So I just do a light sketch. So isn't that beautiful? There's your little sketch of white accent there. And then I'm going to do a little sketch of a line here. Just kind of looks like that. Oops, pushed into gold. Hold up. Rinse off. Dry off. And we're back. Okay. And so we've got a little bit of this white. And then I'm going to do a little squiggle. Okay. Now I think we're getting ready for the black. All right, so wherever we have tight curves and corners and things, now you want to use your little bit brush, and then where there's a straight line, you want to try to use your flats as much as possible. So that would be, an example of that would be either Mama or Little Buddy. So Mama, see how she still has that flat line? Same with Little Buddy. And so that real slender flat line makes it much easier to do your line work. Because if you try to continue on do all your line work with this teeny tiny little polka dot line right there, you'll get the squigglies usually. Your hand gets a little shaky. So you want to allow the longest line edges you can to help stabilize that line as long as possible. So probably a physics lesson in there somewhere. Not my forte, so I'm going to avoid that conversation. Okay, so I'm going to stick to art, but I do know that it works. Okay, so I press into the black. Pressure back and forth. Check out that nice thin line. And so I want to use this as much as possible. So here we go. And I won't be able to use it that much because I just, too many curves. But as much as possible. Get as much distance as I can. And then with this pumpkin, so there's a curve to it for sure, but it's a long curve. So because it's not a real tiny, tight curve, I can still go ahead and use the Mama brush around that surface area for most of the distance there. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and put Mama into the water. I'm going to switch back over to my little bit brush. Do that little twist into the paint. So that loads up the belly of the brush, but it also twists it into a nice fine point. And then I'm gonna smooth this out. I got a little bit of both lines kind of cross-hatched, and I had that little crisscross happening there. I didn't like that, so I came back over it, smoothed that out there. And then this was a bit more of a curve that I wanted to deal with, a little too tight in there. So then I'm gonna firm that back up with my little bit brush. And then I still have little curves right in through here. And definitely teeny tiny little curves at the top of the mason jar. So I'm gonna come back into this, see, work those out, and see, it really makes it pop out to the front. Just gives it a nice finished look. Another deciding factor for me to go ahead and pull in black lines is because I definitely have this strong black line that has to happen with that buffalo check pattern. And so if I do not finish out the rest with black line, it could look a little out of balance. It looks like this big harsh black lined object in the painting, and then the rest of it doesn't match with the same style. So this definitely helps pull the style all together. And let's see here, I'm going to do a little bit more of an accent, just be a little bit more subtle about it this time, coming around the leaves. Let's give that one a bit more fullness. And what's really nice too is that this is still a teeny bit wet, and I'm getting a little bit of a soft blend in between those two, so I'm actually really liking that. So it doesn't make the black too abrupt, but it still gives me that unified style that I was looking for. That's my sweet our puppy dog. All right, so we have just enough of that black to really kind of help tie it all together. And then now I want to do the lettering. Now, crucial choices here. This is absolutely completely dry. So I'm going to show you that it is much easier to come in with a Sharpie at this point and do all your lettering. The trick with the Sharpie though is that you have to make sure that paint is completely dry, or else you'll just kill your Sharpie instantly, and that's very sad. We hate to see a good Sharpie go to waste. And then on all your loops, you want to make sure you go outside of those loops to make sure that they are secured and you don't lose that shape. And I'm going to do a visual for you on a plate, so you'll see what I'm talking about. Because I don't want to show you what not to do on the painting, because it's really hard to recover from it. But I would say this is a great way to start. And then you can also follow up with a little, like a paint pen, or you can also just paint it on too if you want. And I'm going to show you how to paint it on as well. All right, but you can see this is so much easier than painting on. Now, little bit, you want to get a small little bit brush, take it, twist into the paint, so that loads it up, but it twists it into a nice fine point, and you can see how teeny tiny it is. And then you can absolutely just do all of this as a painted, just all this is painted lettering as well. So it definitely, you have to be very patient with it. but you can just go over it too. I think just to be safe, you could do it with Sharpie first and then go back over it with the paint, and then, you know, just that way it gives it that painted look. But then there might be, you know, little bits of Sharpie underneath as a foundation that helps really stabilize it in the surface area. But you can see how you really can't tell that this is Sharpie. And real artists use Sharpie all the time. So that gives you an idea. But again, important tips on this, just make sure you twist it out as you load the brush. That way it'll give you a nice fine point. And it will dry brush on you pretty quickly, so you do have to keep going back into the paint. That's why it does require a lot of patience to paint on your lettering. So let's talk about the loop thing one more time. So we've got, let's just do the letter E, for example. Let's do two of them. Let's do one the right way and one the wrong way. Okay. And normally I say, there are no mistakes, only possibilities. But you are welcoming in some crazy possibilities with the looped in E, because it just becomes a whole nother letter in which you get a whole nother word, which I hope that works out. So you just never know. But, all right, so I've got my little bit brush, twist it into the paint. So the right way to do this is to go outside of that loop. That preserves that loop shape to where your E is intact. Super important. Now, here's what I see a lot of people do in class. They come in to the middle of the loop, and then it eliminates. And they go, oops. Teacher, how do I fix this? Hi, Greg. Welcome. And then usually what we have to do is we have to let this completely set up and dry. I also have other tricks. Well, so we'll talk. Okay, let's just talk about that. How do we fix this? Okay, so one way is to completely let this set up and dry. And then we would come back in with whatever color is over the top, in which case here it would have been that we'd have to take a lot of time and trouble to mix very, very close, as close as you can get it colored, and then we would have to reinforce like the center of that, which I just did pretty easily. So there's that solution. See what I mean? Possibilities, we got this, we can do this. All right, and then I want to, come back in and touch up. Now another thing that you can do is, I don't know if it'll work on, it definitely works on a canvas, but you have to make sure it's flat so you don't get a water run. But people will sometimes make, I'm just going to put some paint on here. And they go, oops, I just painted all this black outside the line. How do I fix this? So we turn it flat. Now, the other key is the paint has to be very, very wet. You can't, if you've been sitting there with it having a cocktail for an hour and then come to me and say, hey, I have this big thing outside of my line, I'm not going to be able to do this technique. I'm going to have to paint over the top. Still a possibility. Acrylic is very forgiving. But in this case, if you bring it to me fresh, I can hit it, I have to turn it flat, I hit it with some water, loosens it all up from the surface, and then I'll come in with a paper towel, and I can literally lift it right off your canvas, all of it. It'll lift right off. And it's gone. And we do that all the time on canvas. But the main thing is, steady hand with that processed water, flat, has to be flat, because if it's like this and you just douse it with water, it's just gonna run all the way down your canvas. So David, who used to help me all the time at the shows, he would also do a thing. He always had lots of Q-tips nearby, and they were like little precious little Q-tip helpers, and they could get into really tiny little areas with that water and then lift off into a tiny little spot to do little corrections. But again, just keep your canvas flat. But we always worked wonders with water and Q-tips, as long as you get to it pretty quickly. So little helpful hints right there, just popped up for us. So yay. All right, so I think we are done with our beautiful painting. Just very simple, welcome home. We did this, you know, very different kind of buffalo check this time. Last time we did the chevron. If you were doing the chevron in the past, all that was a color mix between the gold and the orange. And I did have to use several coats on the orange to get really good coverage over the top. And then of course the gold, I always add a little bit of white titanium to the gold to make sure it has really good coverage over the surface area. But yes, we are absolutely finished. It's beautiful. So thank you so much for joining me today. I've had such a great time with y'all. And you know what, I'm not sure. I probably am painting tomorrow. I normally do on Sunday. I'm not sure, but I think I am. So I probably am. Yeah, I swear. One day, it's so funny, I'm so focused on the painting that I'm doing in the moment that I usually always forget to look ahead and get to the next day so that I can, you know, talk about it while I'm teaching. And, you know, that's a good marketing thing, but I just keep forgetting. So, but yes, if I don't see you tomorrow, which I probably will, because I just usually teach almost every day. But if I don't, then for sure Monday or Tuesday. But always check out our Facebook events. Check for our next class there. We have it always there for you. And usually about 12:30 is my time now that I'm really loving. So we'll be happy to paint with you then. Be super fun. Oh, you know what? Except for Sundays, because we have the Cowboy Church here now. So and they kind of run a little bit late. And so now on Sundays, I usually start at about 1 or 1:30. So how's that for about and approximate all that good stuff? But yes, Facebook events knows. They know more than me right now. They have all the answers. Yes. So yes, I will see y'all soon, but y'all have a beautiful rest of the day. And all the supplies can be found at tipsyartist.com. And then I'm gonna go jump on the computer right now and also get back with you with all the promised links and all that good stuff. Yay! Thank you so much. Mwah.